So last week I finished reading a book called The Mom Test, which is a very short book. It's about 3-4 hours, and it's very good if you're someone who's working on a new project, especially if it's an app or some sort of software. And it's about how to interview people. So the way it gets its name from the Mom Test is that the closer someone is to you, the more they're going to be biased to encourage whatever you're doing rather than actually give their real opinions. So if you ask your mom, you say, hey, I want to do this business, Mom. Do you think it's a good idea? She'll say, oh, of course, honey. So you give all these ideas and all these concepts, and then maybe she says something where it's like, but that didn't work because it's not going to work out. And then you're like, oh, but I forgot about this part. And you're basically trying to sell someone who already is of the mindset of completely wanting to support you. And of course your mom is the most obvious, but just anyone physically in person, if they're in front of you, you're having a conversation, you're trying to tell them something's a good idea, their reaction is going to be, yes, that is a good idea. So that's the basic premise of the book, is how do you get around that? How do you talk to people in a way where you could actually figure out whether they would be the person to use that product, use that service, rather than just say they are because they want to be nice to you. So the way in which you do that is you never even mention that you have the service, never mention you're planning to have that service or have that product, whatever it is. You're basically probing about their life in a specific way that makes it so that no one knows what you're actually planning to do. So it's a very secretive approach. Basically what you want to do is say, the example they have in the book is they're making a cookbook app. So he goes, hey Mom, where do you get your cookbooks? And she's like, oh, I just had them forever. I pick them up once in a while. And he's like, wouldn't it be cool if they were like all online? And she's kind of like, well, I already have my recipes. But yeah, I mean, that would be pretty cool. And then you ask, like, how do you actually find out about new cookbooks? Well, I just kind of happen to see them at specific like boutique stores. So then, if the idea is a cookbook app, you might say, well, how do you find new apps in general? How do you find the idea to download an app? How do you get that idea? Do you search for the apps? It's like, well, no, I kind of hear about them. I saw one in the paper, and it seemed like it might be pretty cool, so I downloaded that. That was probably the last app I downloaded. And one of the major things is that I took away from this book is people have to be actively searching for what you're going to be providing, rather than just have a want for it. So the best example of that is he was in a coffee shop and this guy in front of him was like looking for his loyalty card, but he couldn't find it. He was fumbling around. He's like, oh, I have this big pile of like punch cards and loyalty cards. Why don't they just all use like one card or one app or something? And so he asked the guy, oh, like, have you searched for the app? And he's like, well, no, I haven't searched for it. So it doesn't really matter if someone has a problem. They also have to be actively looking to solve that problem, or you have to have a way to get it in front of them to the point where they would care. Otherwise, it doesn't work. So this guy, what he did was he actually looked in the App Store. He found one that worked. And he said, here's an app. It has all the different loyalty cards. Do you want to download it? And he's like, nah, I don't have time for that. So people sometimes just complain for the sake of complaining. They don't care about solving the problem. They're not going to take the time to look for the solution. You could hand them the solution and they won't care. So in that case, that's how you know that it's a dumb business idea. Because your target market, who's actively complaining they want a solution, genuinely does not care, genuinely does not want the solution. So in terms of interviewing other people, he says to try to get people who are very like up high in the industry and like actually know things. But even then you want to be more secretive with your intentions. And he says a good way to go about it with, trying to schedule interviews where they're really not getting anything out of it. They're just helping you out and trying to be a good person. Is you frame it in a way, you don't have to tell them this, but in your mind, you are looking for, people to guide you on your business journey. And you're willing to give up a percentage of your company for that. You may genuinely be willing to do that. So just think, like, if this person genuinely was the smartest person I've ever talked to in this industry, I would give him 1% of my company to be an advisor. So that's how he sort of deals with it in his mind, like asking all these people all the time for interviews, high-level people, and sort of taking up their time. So he says the best way to interview is to take brief notes and quotes. And the most important thing, a lot of this was about SaaS, like software as a service apps and stuff like that for B2B. In that case, you really want to ask, and really in all cases, what their biggest pain point is. Like, what is the most annoying part of your day concerning this process that we're working to solve and have a solution for? Because the customer owns all of the problems. You own all of the solutions. It goes back to that thing where they said if Henry Ford asked his customers what they wanted, he would be a horse breeder. He would try to be breeding faster horses. You, as the entrepreneur, are the one who comes up with the solutions and says, no, based on what you're telling me, you would much rather have a car than just a faster horse. And so you're sort of solving their problems that way. And the best way to do this is to have two people, whenever possible, and take notes. So you'll go to a meeting, one of you will ask questions and one of you will take notes. The notes are specific quotes, like, oh, the most annoying part of my day is when I have to do this. And then that'll be something you write down as a quote. And again, the same concept of the customer owning the problem is when you go back to your team, you don't own the solution even there. You're presenting the top quotes that you got from that interview to your team so they can also decide with you what the best course of action is, what that customer actually needs, rather than you interpreting it as one thing and really you could have been making cars instead of breeding horses. So that was pretty much all the book was about. It was a very good book. I think anyone who's doing anything software based should definitely read it and check it out.